Hi there and welcome to the next episode in my Citroen Relay van build series. This is the one I've been putting off, I have to be honest. But the build's getting on nicely, and if I don't do it now, it's going to be too late because everything will be boarded up. So it's time to talk insulation. So the reason why I've been putting this one off is because it does seem to get everyone very opinionated. Everyone thinks their method is the best, and everyone else is doing it in a really rubbish fashion. I don't know whether mine is the best or not. I wouldn't dare to say. I've just done what I thought was going to be right for me. So let me give you a quick recap on what I've used and where I've used it, and then we'll come on to the ultimate hot topic, being vapor barriers. So starting from the bottom and working our way up, first of all, in the floor under here, and you can see this in my flooring video, but basically I battened out and I filled in the voids pretty well, like everybody does, with 25mm PIR board and 25mm battens. I've still got a little bit of the old PIR board left in the garage here. I can't believe for a second no one would have seen this before and gone, ooh, what's that? But anyway, there it is, the old closed cell foam PIR board, which is foiled on both sides. Interestingly, I bought 3 sheets of that, and even in an L4 van I only seem to have used 2, so that's interesting. I've got a whole sheet of that left over to do something with, God knows what now, to be honest, but hey. So that's in the floor. And then on the walls, if we just come in here, I've covered pretty well the entire van on the inside, or as best as I could, with this closed cell foam insulation, which is self-adhesive on the back, so you just literally stick it onto the van, and then it's got this aluminium foil on this side. And if I just peel that back there, it's about 5-6 mil, something like that. So that's pretty well all the way across all of the walls, over the ceiling, and in the doors, and everywhere I could get that. I bought one big roll off of Amazon, I think it was, from a company called Vandalized, no less. But anyway, seems to be doing the trick well. And then in the walls, you know, buried in here and at the bottom, and in the doors and all the way around. Actually, you can see some of it up here still, because I haven't put my top solway panel piece in yet. And oh, there's a little bit sticking out of the pillar there, look, where I filled the pillars up. And that is the good old recycled bottle insulation, the 100mm thickness. And I just went for the cheap and cheerful one from B&Q, because it's considerably cheaper than the one you can buy from the van build places. And if you look at the facts and figures over its thermal conductivity properties and everything else, actually they're pretty well in the same ballpark. So you know, it is what it is. And that actually fits into that gap just lovely. Look, that will slide down in there. I haven't finished this off yet this side, but that slides down in there and fills that hole up behind the solway panel perfectly. So that's the plan of action, and that's what I'm doing now. So as I work my way round, back doors are done with that. This side over here, which is the head part of the bed, which is why there's reading lights here, that's filled up with it in there. Actually, you can see a bit of it sticking out here, look, because there's a cupboard coming in here just to about there. Only a little thin jobby, but so there's a bit sticking out there. So again, that goes pretty well all the way around the van where possible. On this L4H3, I think I'm on roll number 5 now, so you do need quite a lot of that. And I know I'm not going to have enough left to fill in along the top here and across there, so I am going to need roll number 6. The bottom is done, and in here basically up to about there. So I just need to finish off this top bit, which is the job I'm doing today, of finishing off this top here, so I can start building the the section for the fridge here, and then the kitchen going forward. And then up in the ceiling, I've used a product that I haven't seen anybody use before in a van build. I'm not quite sure why. I thought it was a cracking job, unless it's the price that puts people off. I've used a Multifoil. Now you can see above my wire spaghetti here, a bit of it sticking out here. So if I just bend that round, there's multiple layers of insulation and foil in there. And this is a product called Super Quilt. And now a roll of this is about 100 quid, so it's not the cheapest thing in the world to use, but because I wanted to get my ceiling as tight up to the roof as possible to maximise the headroom, I didn't want to put the old 25mm PIR board in there on stick pins, which is what most people seem to do, because that would have meant bringing the ceiling down a little bit. And also, a little bit of an OCD of me is I hate rattles and squeaks and all those sorts of things in a moving vehicle, and I was just very worried that this PIR board was going to squeak and rub and make all kinds of noises up in there, and that put me off something fierce. So I've used this Multifoil. Now there's many people will go, "Whoa, you don't want to use that up in there, that's going to create a thermal bridge and it's going to get baking hot and blah blah blah." Well, I did this part quite a few weeks ago now, and we've been through a couple of sessions of good sort of 30-degree temperatures, and question is, did my ceiling get baking hot? And the answer is nope, no it didn't. You know, relative to the temperature of the rest of the van, if you put your hands up on here during those really hot temperatures, it was no hotter than the side panels or the wood down here. So that seems to be doing the job just nicely. So that Super Quilt goes across all the way. And if you look at the ceiling installation video, you'll see that actually I put loads of string across, and then the Super Quilt is set on the string. So there is just a tiddly gap above that. So it's not actually touching the metal of the van. And of course, let's remember, above that on the ceiling, we've got this closed cell foam. So even though it might be touching the aluminium and that, it's not actually touching the metal of the van up in the ceiling particularly, or not in too many places anyway. So that's what I've used up in the ceiling. The old recycled bottles in the wall, and PIR board in the floor, and that pretty well sums up the insulation that I'm using. Right, let's get on to the topic that I think everyone's more interested in. Right then, vapor barriers. I've chosen, as you can probably tell, not to put a vapor barrier in my van, and here's my explanation as to why. I think a lot would depend on how often you're using your van and at what times of the year and in what countries as to whether a vapor barrier would be a good idea or a bad idea. Yes, potentially if you're living in the van full time and you're going to be using a heating source during the winter and cooking in there every day and all the rest of it, then yeah, it might be deemed a sensible move if being the operable word there, you can install it properly. And the reality is, I don't think very many of us can, and a poorly installed vapor barrier is effectively no vapor barrier at all. I can't help but wonder as well that a few YouTubers that have installed vapor barriers and have very big subscriber numbers and enormous amounts of views have put vapor barriers in and gone, "Wow, this is what you need. You know, there's no ifs, no buts. This is the way." And everyone's a bit like sheep. And forgive me if you're installing a vapor barrier at the moment. You do what you think is right for you, obviously. But I can't help but wonder if everyone's a bit like sheep here, and they're watching these one or two videos and going, "Oh, blimey, oh, we better do that then." And they're installing the good old foil faced bubble wrap in the entire van without really looking into the details of whether they do or don't need it, whether it's right or wrong for them or anything else. They're just following what everyone else is doing. So I did a little bit of digging myself, and I was a bit worried about some of the things that came to light with vapor barriers, and the pros and cons of installing it in a van. So the general purpose of a vapor barrier, as I see it, is to mitigate the temperature changes at certain times of the year. So when you're inside the van at certain times of the year, you yourself are emitting vapor into the air by talking and breathing, humidity effectively. When you're cooking, you're creating humidity and water-laden air from the steam from whatever you're cooking, and as a byproduct of the LPG gas if you're using gas. The shower and bathroom, also you've got hot water, well, I mean hot in the loosest possible term obviously, but you know, you've got warm water in there, which again is producing steam and vapor. So you've got all this vapor going on inside the van, and when it's warm inside the van during the autumn and the spring and the winter, and you've got the heating on as well, and it's cold outside, so the outside metal skin of the van is cold, and you've got this temperature change, what you're trying to do is to stop that moisture laden air from touching the outside skin of the van, and because of that temperature change it condensates and forms a water on the skin of the van. That's the general crux of it. So to stop that, you install this vapor barrier to stop this water getting through the wall coverings and wall linings that you have and getting to the cold metal of the van. Now that in principle is fine if you can install one perfectly, but the reality is I don't think very many people at all can install one perfectly, and it needs to be literally millimeter perfect all the way around, otherwise it's a waste of time. So this study was carried out in the United States on vapor barriers in properties, and particularly looking at drywall. Drywall is their terminology for what we in the UK call plasterboard, basically the same thing. And they worked out that during over a heating season in a property, a 8x4 sheet of plasterboard, or 244 by 122 centimeters, or 2440 by 122, you get the gist of it, would let through 1/3 of a quart of liquid during a heating season. Now here in the UK everyone's now saying, screaming at their device, what the heck's a quart? Well, a quart is an American measurement of fluid, and a 1 quart is pretty well 1 litre really. It's actually 0.94 of a litre, but for argument's sake, a litre. So a piece of plasterboard through diffusion, because it's semi-permeable, will let through 1/3 of a quart, which effectively is 330 mil. Where else do we know this 330 mil? That sounds very familiar, doesn't it? Oh, hang on a minute. A can of Coke or fizzy drink, a bottle of beer, these are all 330 mil. So that's the amount of liquid that will just naturally diffuse through a sheet of plasterboard because it's semi-permeable. In a van there are other things that also of course are semi-permeable that you might put on your walls. Cladding, for example, plywood, these are all semi-permeable. Same thing. Now if you have a if you have a 1-inch hole in that plasterboard, and this is where it gets interesting, a 1-inch by 1-inch hole in that plasterboard, how much do you think that increases by? Well, I'm going to tell you, obviously. It goes up to 30 quarts, not 1/3, but 30. So over a heating season, you've got 30 litres of water will find its way through one inch by 1 inch hole. Now I know you're now thinking, what the hell has that got to do with vans? That's plasterboard in houses. But think about it. In a house, in a heating season, you've got people, at least one. You've got a bathroom with steam and showers and baths. You've got a kitchen with cooking and steam from boiling and stuff like that. So you've got all the same things that you have in the van, but invariably in a considerably bigger space. In a van, you've got all these same things, at least one person, because you need at least one to drive the thing, usually two invariably, or more. And you've got a bathroom and a kitchen, and it's a much smaller space, isn't it? So is that 30 litre figure through a 1 inch by 1 inch hole going to be higher in a van or lower in a van? Truth is, I don't really know. You know, I have no idea. But it got me thinking, ooh, that doesn't sound good, does it? And of course, if you've installed a vapour barrier and you've got gaps in it, which invariably you do, this water is gonna work its way through. And if you've got the metal skin of the outside of the van, which is impermeable, so no vapor can get through that because it's metal, and you've got this vapor barrier on the inside, and you've got your gap in the middle with your insulation in, and this water's getting through all your little gaps and holes, where's it going to go? Well, the reality is it ain't going anywhere, because it's not going to find its way back out through those tiny little gaps and holes. It's going to stay in there, and depending on what sort of insulation you've got, that's going to start getting that wet and mouldy and rotten, and it poses a question. When you go to your camping and caravan shop and motorhome shop, and you look at camper vans that are 15-20 years old, and you think, oh, that's a very familiar smell, isn't it? Why do old camper vans smell like old camper vans, I wonder? And then of course you come on to the situation with leakage around the roof primarily. We all have installed, you know, we've all installed fans, roof lights, solar panels, cable glands and all kinds of things on our roof, and we all think we've done a smashing job of sealing that up nice and tight. But again, the reality is, at one point or another, something is going to leak. Now, if you put a vapor barrier in, where's our water going to go? It's going to come through the ceiling, either the fan or the roof vent or cable glands or whatever it is, and it's going to hit that vapor barrier. Well, it can't go down anymore. That's the vapor barrier. So it's going to run off to the sides, and it's going to go down in your cavities. And again, same thing. Where's it going to go? Well, it can't get out now unless there's enough of it that it pools in the bottom and goes out through the holes in the bottom of the sills. And why are those holes there in the first place? Well, they're there to let the water out when water gets in, because that's just what happens. So as it's working its way down and pooling in the bottom until there's enough to actually get out through the holes, what's it doing? It's making all your insulation wet. So to me, that doesn't sound good at all. So I'm going to go with not installing a vapor barrier, and actually deliberately leaving plenty of holes and gaps everywhere to let the cavity breathe. I've made a point of making sure all the holes underneath are open and not blocked up, so that if any moisture does work its way into there, it can come out at the bottom as it's supposed to. And also air can get in there as well to you know, to help dry. Now, I remain open-minded to the notion that I'm doing this completely and utterly wrong, and I should have installed a vapor barrier, and you know, time will tell on that over the course of the next few years. I've deliberately left a couple of places where I can get my hand in to check if there's any any moisture gathering in the cavity there. And of course I'll do that at the appropriate times of the year when you got the heating on and it's cold outside, and shove my hand in there and see whether it's wet or not, and see. But like I said at the start, you know, it's very much personal preference and personal opinion, isn't it? And if you want to install a vapor barrier, that's great, go for it, no problem at all. Try and do a pucker job of it, obviously. And if you're living permanently in your van, then that might be worth considering, just because of the amount of usage. I'm not. We're going to be using our van for long weekends, trips to Europe and things like that. I don't think we're going to be using it in the dead of winter when it's snowing outside and things like that. It's just going to be parked up minding its own business. And of course, bear in mind, there's a lot of the YouTubers that claim and declare they live in their van. They don't. It's all, you know, it sounds good, doesn't it? But they don't. So let me take you inside the van before I finish boarding everything up and you can't see any of it anymore, to show you why I don't think it's very easy to install a vapor barrier properly. Let's get inside and have a look. So this side of the van, where the kitchen and everything is going to go, I think is going to explain the problem perfectly, in fact, and show you the challenge you've got. First of all, trying to install a vapor barrier in a van is not easy because of all the shapes and curves and things. You know, if I just go down this end above the sliding door, you know, look at the shape of this, and up here, and you know, it's riddled with holes everywhere. What invariably you have to do, and what a lot of people do, is of course they batten all this out to try and get it straight and then stretch their bubble wrap over there. But you know, when you do that, you're just losing loads and loads of space all the time, and I want to maximize the inside space of the van by keeping everything as tight back against the wall as possible. Like for example, my Solway panels here, this is right against the main rib running this way. Now what a lot of people have done, and I've seen this on YouTube, is they batten here and they batten down and they batten up, and you end up, you know, literally sort of all out here, you know, right up to that point. So you end up with this dirty great big gap behind, and no space left in the van. And it was interesting watching one video where there was a chap that was 6 foot tall, and I'm 6 foot tall. And when he'd finished, you know, battening out the side and putting his cladding on this side, and battening out and putting his cladding over this side, and they had a Fiat Ducato, this is a Citroen Relo, so basically the same thing, he couldn't sleep that way. He was, you know, 4 or 5 inches too tall. And that's how much they battened out by and clad. Now I can sleep across here, no trouble at all, because I've tried it, and I fit, no problem at all. So, you know, I've managed to get mine quite a long way back into the recesses to maximise the space. Now, you know, if you're going to put a vapor barrier on, it's very difficult to vapor barrier in behind this because of the shapes and angles of everything as it works its way up and maximise the space. You've got no choice but to batten it out to stretch your vapor barrier over it, and you're just losing all your space inside. And also, the more important thing is, people miss an awful lot of holes. Now let's just look at the back here first of all. So on the back here, I've opened the back door deliberately to show you something in a second, but you know, they start here where the door rubber is, and they vapor barrier across there. That invariably is an afterthought, of course, after they've done this bit, but they vapor barrier across there and carry on round. But they miss things, and the things they miss are like this. If I come down here, on the outside of the van here, look, you've got a hole, and at the side of the light cluster there's gaps. Now that hole actually works its way through on the inside and into this cavity there, And this cavity there goes all the way up here, and oh look, there's another hole there, and up at the top here it works its way around and it comes into there, and there's holes here, and that goes all the way along. There's another hole there, and so moist air from outside, if you're in a particularly humid environment, is going to work its way in and get into your cavity, and you're not even aware that that's happening, and that's just at the back in that one place. What about all the drain holes in the sill along the bottom? Well, again, if you're in a humid environment, air is going to come up into the cavity from underneath, so that also is going to be a problem. Let's look around this door. Again, there's loads of holes here and the holes along the bottom. That potentially, unless you've really gone to town on that, and again you've had to board right out to here to fill all that in, there's potential gaps. And one of the biggest ones that most people miss is at the front here. So this, of course, as you can see, is above the sliding door, and as we work our way down, oh, look at that great big hole there. Now where does that go? That goes into the front. So let me open the old tamper door there, and it's a bit dark in here, so you know, forgive that, but let's take that bit out. Okay, so this is my nice cupboard up here. Now, do people vapor barrier right into this corner? I wonder. And you know, and do it absolutely perfectly with no gaps whatsoever, because that goes all the way through. So if I hold the camera over here and I put my hand in behind there, you know, I can go gooey. There's my fingers, look. So that goes all the way in. So you've got your cupboard over the cab, and you've got stuff in there. Let's say you've been out in the rain and you shove your umbrella in there, or a wet coat or something. Where's that moist air going? It's going through there, and it's coming into here behind your vapor barrier, and it's going into all your cavities. And then I also thought, you know, when I was pondering the idea of doing a vapor barrier, I thought, well, my bed frames that I want to make using the IKEA Scorva beams, you know, they really needed to be, you know, fixed with riv nuts to the metal ribs on the side of the van, which is what we got here. I know that looks horrible gash there, but once the beams in everything, you don't actually see any of that, funny enough. But you know, there's going to be holes and gaps everywhere. Around the power socket, you know, there's holes and gaps. Remember, you only need a 1 inch by 1 inch hole to let 30 litres of water through. Well, you know, just in around the back of a light socket, in and around these holes in there, through the USB holes, you know, there's holes everywhere. It's just unavoidable. So of course, even on things like the Max fans here, you know, they're not perfectly airtight by any means. So humid air can again come up through here and work its way around all the little gaps and things, and into your ceiling void. And moist air from outside can come in and work its way through all the tiny little gaps and into your ceiling void as well. And really, if you're going to think about doing a vapor barrier, because the moisture is airborne, it's effectively humidity, that's what we're talking about, you need to think of a vapor barrier not so much as a vapor barrier, but actually an air barrier, because it's the air that you need to stop. So you're almost looking at trying to create a vacuum in your cavities, and that sounds a lot harder now, doesn't it? So whether that turns out to be a good move or a terrible decision, we shall see. But that's what I've decided to do. And like I say, the main reasons were for not doing it are A, I don't think I'm capable, as equally in fairness to all the other van builders that have done YouTube videos, I don't think anybody is capable of making a perfect vapor barrier. And so moisture is going to get in. Number two, I didn't want to batten out horrifically all the way around in order to be able to do a vapor barrier or attempt a vapor barrier and lose those vital centimeters all the way around. And why does everyone use bubble wrap? What's that all about? Anyway, so all things being considered, I've made my choice not to do it. And there we are. Whether you found that interesting or think I'm talking a load of old rubbish, make your own mind up. And hey, let me know in the comments down below. Have you vapor barriered and it's worked out perfectly? Have you not vapor barriered and it worked out perfectly? Have you vapor barriered and all your insulation sopping wet? Hey, how would you know unless you've taken it apart? Let me know your thoughts down below. It'd be interesting to see what everyone thinks about that. Anyway, time to move on with the build. Let's put insulation to bed once and for all. And I'll see you next time. Bye.